The first day he arrived, the classroom went silent in a way that only happens when something truly unexpected enters the room. Classroom Theta, 9 of the Lyrics Academy, was usually loud, filled with overlapping voices, harmonic clicks, color-shifting skin patterns, and floating glyphs of data. The students were all female, not by rule, but by tradition. Lyrixian education separated early academies by cognitive resonance, and this particular class happened to consist entirely of girls from different alien species across the sector. They were brilliant, and they knew it. Professor Shale, a tall, six-limbed Lyrixian whose skin pulsed softly with teal light, was in the middle of explaining multidimensional probability fields when the door slid open. Behind it stood someone no one expected. He was human. No glowing skin. No extra limbs. No bioluminescent eyes or telepathic aura. Just a boy, tall for his age, dark-haired, wearing a simple gray academy uniform that looked slightly too big, as if it hadn't been tailored for his species. Professor Shale paused mid-sentence. The girls stared. Humans were rare at Lyrics Academy. Not because they weren't intelligent, but because they learned differently. Linear thinkers in a universe that prized harmonic intuition. Humans preferred steps, algorithms, logic chains. Lyrixians, Orliths, and Vishari learned through resonance, feeling concepts rather than dissecting them. The boy cleared his throat. Hi. That single word disrupted Theta, 9 more than any failed experiment ever had. This, Professor Shale said slowly, regaining composure, is Eli Carter. He has been transferred here under the Interstellar Exchange Accord. A low hum rippled through the room, a mix of curiosity, confusion, and mild irritation. Orlith twins Lumia and Sari exchanged thoughts instantly. A human? In advanced probability resonance? Vishari student Kex tilted her head, her eyes fractaling. Isn't this class incompatible with his species? Professor Shale's skin flashed amber. That remains to be seen. Eli shifted his weight, feeling every gaze on him. He had expected this. The looks. The unspoken questions. Humans were always the odd ones out. Take the open seat, the professor said, pointing to the only empty desk, right in the center. Of course it was. From the start, Eli didn't fit. When Professor Shale asked the class to feel the probability field of a collapsing star system, the girls closed their eyes. Colors rippled across their skin. Soft tones filled the air. Eli frowned. He didn't feel anything. Instead, he pulled up his tablet and started writing equations.
Fast. Clean. Precise.
Kex noticed first. He's not resonating, she whispered. He's calculating, Lumia replied, intrigued despite herself. When Professor Shale asked for interpretations, the answers flowed as expected. Emotional impressions, probability hues, harmonic outcomes. Then, reluctantly, the professor turned to Eli. Human. Your interpretation. Eli hesitated. I can't feel it like you do. But if the mass-to-energy ratio exceeds the threshold I calculated, the system doesn't just collapse. It destabilizes the neighboring probability wells. You'd get a cascade failure. The room went quiet. That's not what the resonance showed, Sari said. Eli shrugged. Resonance is great for patterns, but it can miss edge cases. Professor Shale stared at the equations, then at the class. For tomorrow, the professor said slowly, we will test both approaches. The girls left the room buzzing. The human hadn't just answered differently. He had challenged the foundation of how they learned. Over the following weeks, Eli became impossible to ignore. He asked questions no one else did, not why does this feel correct, but what if the assumptions are wrong? He didn't disrupt out of arrogance. He was genuinely curious. And that, somehow, was more unsettling. Some of the girls were annoyed. He slows us down, Kex complained during a break. We have to explain everything. Others were fascinated. He sees what we don't, Lumia admitted. He maps the structure beneath the resonance. Gradually, group projects changed. Instead of one shared intuitive solution, they began splitting tasks, some feeling the system, others modeling it mathematically with Eli. Their scores improved. So did their arguments. You can't reduce everything to numbers, Sari snapped during one heated debate. And you can't trust feelings without verification, Eli shot back. Professor Shale watched all of it with growing interest and concern. Change was happening faster than expected. The real shift came during the simulation trial. Once a cycle, Theta 9 was tested with a full-spectrum crisis simulation, a controlled virtual scenario designed to push cognitive limits. Failure was common. Success was rare. This cycle's scenario was classified until the moment it began. The room darkened. The simulation field activated. A synthetic galaxy bloomed around them. Stars, trade routes, unstable regions glowing red. An artificial intelligence announced the problem. Multiple systems approaching synchronized collapse. Civilian populations at risk. Time to resolution limited. The girls closed their eyes, reaching out with resonance. Eli didn't. He studied the data streaming across the hollow field. They're linked, he said quickly. Not causally, mathematically. Someone designed this instability. That's impossible, Keck said. Natural collapse patterns. Don't synchronize across 12 systems unless forced, Eli interrupted. Look at the timing offsets. Professor Shale hesitated. Continue. As the girls traced emotional fault lines, Eli began mapping a hidden structure, a lattice beneath the chaos. There, he said. Remove that node. But resonance says that system is stable, Sari argued. Only on the surface, Eli replied. It's a load-bearing illusion. They hesitated. Then Lumia made a decision. We trust him. They acted. The simulation froze. Scenario resolved, the AI announced. Time remaining, 70%. Silence filled the room. Professor Shale's skin flashed bright gold, shock. That, the professor said slowly, has never happened. From that moment on, the class was never the same. Not everyone was pleased. Reports reached the Academy Council. Concerns were raised about method contamination and cognitive imbalance. Humans, some argued, introduced rigidity into systems that required fluidity. Eli felt it too, the subtle distance, the scrutiny. One evening, he stayed behind after class, staring out at the Academy's orbital ring. Do you regret coming here? Professor Shale asked, approaching quietly. Eli thought for a moment. No. But I think I broke something. The professor tilted their head. Or revealed it. Before Eli could respond, an emergency alert blared. This time, it wasn't a simulation. A real system, Astra 9, was destabilizing. A trade hub. Millions of lives. The Academy was being asked to advise. Theta 9 was summoned. The girls felt the resonance immediately. Chaotic, screaming wrong. Eli studied the live data feed, his face pale. It's the same pattern, he said. Someone's doing this again. But bigger. The council chambers filled with debate. Intuition versus analysis. Tradition versus adaptation. Finally, Professor Shale spoke. We use both. Time was short. The girls mapped the emotional fault lines of Astra 9. Eli overlaid a structural model, adjusting in real time based on their input. For the first time, neither approach led. They merged. Hours later, the destabilization slowed, then stopped. Astra 9 was saved. Afterward, the Academy changed its curriculum. Not overnight. Not easily.
but permanently.
Hybrid classes were formed. Cross-species learning became encouraged rather than tolerated. Theta 9 was remembered as the class where it began. As for Eli, he didn't stay forever. Exchange students never did. On his last day, the girls gathered in the classroom where everything had started. "It won't be the same without you," Kex admitted, reluctantly. Eli smiled. "It wasn't the same with me." "That's the point," Lumia said. Professor Shale watched as Eli left, the door sliding shut behind him. The room felt quieter, but also larger. Ending years later, long after Eli Carter had returned to Earth and Lyric's Academy had evolved beyond its old divisions, a new generation of students studied from a revised curriculum. In the historical archive, Theta 9 was listed not for its perfect scores or a rare success rate, but for something far more important: the class that learned to think together. The lesson was simple, and it endured across species and stars. No single way of understanding the universe was ever enough. And sometimes, all it took to change everything was one outsider brave enough to ask a different question.